Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for a Vivit webinar from your Education Special Interest Group on how to turn a software tester into a learning and development champion with virtually no effort. Today I'll be your moderator. My name is Chris Trimper. I'm an Enterprise QA Automation Architect at Independent Health in Buffalo, New York. I also happen to be the Western New York LUG leader, as well as the Education Chairperson for the Vivit Board of Directors. Had over 10 years experience in software quality assurance, focusing in the last 8 years on functional test automation using a slew of tools, including the Micro Focus tools. We are joined today by Anna Marie Jupe, who is from the Professional Services Division of Micro Focus. She has worked in education and adoption for more than 10 years in a variety of different roles. She has experience from sales, delivery, and consulting. And she designs education solutions for customers across the EMEA region. A couple of housekeeping things before we get into Anna Marie's content and presentation. This is a live session. It's available to all Vivit members. It is being recorded, and throughout the session, if you have any questions, go to the question pane to ask those questions. On the next slide, we'll see the webinar control panel where you can see that. So just ask your questions as you have them, and we'll get to them towards the end. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Anna Marie so that we can learn more about accelerating into learning and development champions with no effort. So thank you, Anna Marie. Look forward to hearing more from you now.
Hi, Chris. Can you hear me now?
I can. Here we have Anna Marie joining us. Seems we had a technology glitch. Good thing this wasn't a session on telephony because it would have tanked on us. But we're ready now to learn how to become learning and development champions with little effort. So we're very excited to have you join us. Sorry for the technical glitch, but let's roll with your content. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for the introduction, Chris. And apologies, everyone, for the slight technical issue. Hopefully it's all resolved now. So good afternoon and welcome to this Vivit webinar on how to turn a software tester into a learning and development champion with virtually no effort. So just a bit about me first. My name's Anna Marie Jupp. I'm a lead solution consultant for Micro Focus Professional Services, and I specialize in helping customers maximize their software investment by looking at ways of improving their enablement and adoption. I've been in this industry now for more than 10 years, and without actually leaving a company, I've managed to work for 4 different organizations. And really, that leads me on to the fact that change is a big driver for me. And it really is a fact of life for most people working in software testing and other IT industries. So whether that's changes to the methodology you're using, or that's changes to the software itself, or changes to the organization, there's been a lot of changes for me personally since I joined Mercury more than a decade ago. And I would say that this level of change is now pretty standard across a lot of organizations. None of us can do very much about that. But what we can do is make sure we are ready and prepared for these unexpected changes. And the only way to do that, for me, is really to stay on top of your game in terms of your learning and your development and your enablement. You'd be much better prepared for something that you know something about. And for me, this is encapsulated in the quote you can see on the screen, which says, "The rate of learning in an organization must be equal to or greater than the rate of change." This means, obviously, there's a need for a whole lot of learning. Okay, firstly, let's just run through the agenda and the learning objectives for today's session. In true learning and development best practice, I've decided to start with your story, which is a scenario based on a role within an organization, and present this whole topic from that perspective. So just do bear in mind that I'm only presenting one use case. However, I have got some additional use cases that we can touch on towards the end of the session. So I'll set the scene and talk about what we need and where we could start solving our problem. And then I'll move on to 4 different demonstrations as part of the same use case. I'll briefly touch on hosting options and additional use cases, and then wrap up with a summary in order to leave some time to answer any questions that you might have. So your story then. So you are a software tester who works in a team in a medium-sized organization. And in addition to your regular job, someone in the management team has decided that it would be great if you and your team could also start putting together some process guides and other content for the beginning of a knowledge repository, and to help towards new hire training. So thanks for that, I hear you say. So where should you start? Well, wouldn't it be great if there was a way to do this without taking on a ton of extra work? I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither were knowledge repositories, as anyone who's ever started one will be able to tell you. So where do you start, and what do we need? Well, you're going to need something, because for anyone who's been there, taking screenshots and writing instructions in a Word document is literally going to destroy your soul. But what could that be? Well, it should be something that captures all the keystrokes and the mouse clicks you perform, that automatically drops them into a document without you having to screenshot everything and write the instruction without missing out any of the steps, because that's very easy to do when you're writing work instructions. Wouldn't it be great if we could produce something with some kind of video output, maybe even something with some audio as well, as most people these days like to learn through watching? But video production software is notoriously difficult to use. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could write some labs for the new hires so that they could get a chance to practice some of the processes before we actually let them loose on a live system, and before they're able to make any mistakes on a system that would then impact everybody else? And where would we put the content? How will the right people get access to it? How can we facilitate other people contributing to this knowledge repository so that we don't have to do all of it? So let's see if we can find something like that hanging around. Well, Micro Focus have a piece of software called the Adoption Readiness Tool, or ART for short, and we can see if that ticks some of these boxes. So we'll record a process in ALM and then publish a video to play back our process, see how that goes. So let's move on to the first demonstration, which is recording a process in ALM. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, it looks wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Right. So here we are in ALM. Okay. What we're going to do is something very familiar to a lot of you, I'm sure, which is to create a new release and create some cycles associated with that release. So you can see, hopefully you can see, in the right-hand side of the screen, there's this blue box, and that is the Adoption Readiness Tool. Now I'm clicking through this process. I added a new name for the release. I have added a start date, and I need an end date. You can move the box out of the way, and you can see that it is actually recording the steps that I'm taking. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the first cycle. So again, pretty standard process. We need a name, we need a start date, and we need an end date. Okay. And then let's go ahead and create the second cycle. So hopefully what you can see here is that I'm a software tester. I'm doing the things that a software tester normally does as part of my daily work. And At the same time, I've got something recording what I'm doing so that I don't have to create any of this stuff separately. So this is a really good way of multitasking and saving time, being double efficient. Okay, so that's the second cycle. And then the last thing to do is to go back into the first cycle and to just add some additional details. You can see here, I've actually I've gone back into the release and not into the cycle. So I'm just going to remove that step from the capture engine so it doesn't block that. Okay, and I'm just going to add in some description around what this cycle is for. Okay, nice and vague. And then I finished my process, so I'm going to stop. Now this will take me back into a developer kit from which I can do some editing if I need to, or from here I can publish. So you can see here that it's very simple to edit. I can just remove steps like that. I can change some of the action notes, and I can change some of the areas on the screen that the user is directed to by editing these little red action boxes. Okay, and then I'm just going to save the process that we've recorded. Right, should be back to my presentation now. If not, then please let me know. Okay, so the second part of the demonstration will be to use the process that we've just recorded and use it to publish out a video. Okay, so here we are back in the Art Developer Kit, and I'm going to publish out. So you can see there's a number of different outputs that we can select from. Right at the bottom is the video, MP4 video. And then I just need to be sure to save it in the right place, otherwise we won't be able to find it later. Okay, and then I'll just set it to publish. And what that brings up then is a publishing summary, which will link me to the locally saved file. So here we are in, I think, Windows Media Player. And this is the video that we've just recorded from that one process. Okay, so the action notes, the red boxes where the action should take place on the screen. You can, of course, add in some additional contextual information if you want to, but you'll see that the stuff created as part of the creating a cycle and releases is pretty decent enough to push out as content and to help people get started. I think you can probably see, or hopefully you can see that in terms of the actual process that I'm recording, creating the release and the associated cycles, that part is sort of largely irrelevant because it could be on any other process using ALM or any other Windows or web-based application. You can see that the step where I made a mistake when we were recording the process no longer exists. And obviously that's a big difference between recording using some kind of like Skype meeting recorder functionality, for example, and actually something which is editable. Okay, end of video. Hopefully you're back to my screen again. And now, so we have a video, but what about a how-to guide? What about a process guide? What about some kind of work instructions? You know, some people like to learn by watching videos. Some people like to read stuff. Some people like to learn by touching. I mean, it's learning styles. It's very kind of common learning and development theory. So let's see about creating a process guide. Okay, so here we are back in the Art Developer Kit where we were last time. And this time we're just going to publish out to a different output. So you can see there are 4 different types of what they call a job aid, but you can read process guide or work instruction instead. There's, as well as PDF, which is the one I've selected here, you can also select HTML or PowerPoint or Word. So we just click the link to the local file. Mine automatically opens in Edge. You can see here at the top there is a purpose to the document, which you can change if you want to. And here, very clearly, screenshots. Step 1, click here. Step 2, click here. Input tables, arrows, red arrows, which purposely point the user to the exact area of the screen that they need to click on. And these can be saved and circulated, or they can be the basis of creating training materials and training manuals, student guides, lab guides, that kind of thing. So pretty professional looking process guide in hardly any time at all. Okay, so now we have the video of the process. We have the written guide to the process. Is there a way to create some kind of hands-on labs or some kind of practice lesson? And this is really to help the people who prefer to learn by touching. Okay, so here we are back in the Art Developer Kit, and this will be a pretty familiar process now, publishing it out. So here you can see 4 different types of simulation that we can publish to. One is a demonstration, very much like a video. This one is the practice lesson. So this is where the user will step through the process. And then 2 types of assessment, one graded and one which is more of a knowledge check, so it's not graded. So go ahead and launch the practice lesson. Okay, and here we go. So this is me actually stepping through the process. I had a wiggle of my mouth there to show you that it was me, because when art creates the video, it's a lot smoother than that. So I can step through this process step by step. Now this is all made up of screen grabs, okay? So no one's anywhere near the live system, but as far as anyone can tell in terms of being an end user, this is very close to, this is exact copy of the live system, but in a perfectly safe environment. So you get the opportunity to practice. What this does is embed that process into people's heads, as well as see some of the other ways of enabling people, which is to give them the theoretical concepts. It would help if I could spell. Okay, so that's the end of the practice lesson. Okay, so you should now be back to my desktop now. And hopefully that gives you a good idea of how you can record a process that you're going through anyway, and using that as the basis for a number of different types of enablement content, depending on what it is you're actually trying to achieve, and actually paying attention to the fact that everybody does learn differently and giving people that option to learn in the way that suits them the best. So now we have the content we created. Where do we want to put it? Well, having the ability to push it out to a group of people by job role, for example, would be really useful, as well as being able to track who has completed which modules, which parts of it, and whether they've actually managed to pass them or not. So with Micro Focus Art, you can upload the content you create to your own corporate learning management system, so your SABAs, your success factors, that kind of thing. Everything that is published out of art is either SCORM or AICC compliant, which is the industry standard for learning management system content. So that means that you can host it there if you already have something in existence, and you can use the LMS functionality to track all of that stuff, and to create permissions and user groups and all of that. In addition to that, or alternatively, you can host it on a dedicated art server. We call it the Enterprise Learning Edition of Art. And basically, that has some additional functionality around the client server, which allows you to do some of that tracking too. The other option is you can make the content available to a large number of people via just a web server. So in terms of additional use cases, I mean, I've just shown you one as if you were somebody who had to start creating knowledge repository and start to create new content or enablement content for new hires to your organization or to your team. But if you think about it on a wider perspective, you could do things like recording tests so you can recreate errors and defects. You could use it so that the developers can walk the testers through the new releases. You could use it to document configurations made on your organization's tools by external consultants, or even you could document existing processes to find out ways to become more efficient. And in fact, the beauty of it is that all of these additional use cases are still creating enablement content at the same time. Okay, so if you take one thing away from this session, I hope that it is that it's possible to automate the education process. And I know we don't think about automation in those terms, but automation is the holy grail for a lot of organizations. And you should try not to think of enablement as being any different to that. It's still a process, nonetheless, it's still something that needs to be done. I mean, when I started with Mercury more than a decade ago, it was really common for people to do their learning by going out of the office, going on site for a week to a training center where they spent the days doing, listening to lectures and doing some hands-on labs and eating too much cake and drinking too much coffee. And whilst all of this stuff does have its place in particular situations, I think the overarching requirement for enablement now is that it should be convenient, and it should be available when it's needed, and it should be in smaller chunks so it can fit in with the work that you're doing, your everyday regular work. And a tool like ART will allow you to create that kind of content that works better for your organization, with content that has been created during actual completion of real processes on real live environments, created by real life subject matter experts. And if you automate this process, you can look to be spending more time on being more innovative and basically facilitate what would be a well-trained and competent team. Okay, and that takes me to the end. So I'd like to say thank you very much for listening and see if we have any questions. Over to you, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, Anna-Marie. That's fantastic content. I don't know about you, but I'm certainly enabled by drinking too much coffee. So just want to throw that out there. So yeah, there are questions coming in. What I'd like to do is offer up for everyone listening and participating to, get your questions in. We do have ample time to get through them. We do have some to go through, but I want to make sure everybody has a chance to ask their questions. So no particular order. A question that came in early was, and I think you showed it in a screenshot, I think this person wants to hear more about, can you add audio narration to the capture? And if so, can you explain it a little bit?
Absolutely. So yes, you can add audio narration. There's two ways that you can add narration to the simulations, which is what I demonstrated today. So I'm not thinking about course modules, I'm thinking about the simulation that we created and published into the video and the process guide, etc. So you can either add the audio as you record the process, so talk, step, or in the developer kit, you can add the audio afterwards. It just depends on the way that you would prefer to work. For me, I always prefer to add the audio at the end, because after I've then done any editing and removed any unnecessary steps where I've clicked twice on something or whatever.
Oh, for sure. And the last mode that you showed us that was interactive, where an individual would click on something and feel like they're, having a tactile response to the education, would we expect that the audio would take natural pauses while they're waiting to click on things?
So the audio is triggered by the first click. So you click, it talks, and then if you click the next part, it will cut the audio and start the next one.
Oh, that's pretty fantastic.
So that's triggered by you actually performing that action, and the audio will start, but then it will stop if you go on to the next one. Or, sometimes, depending on the voice that you have to listen to, you can turn the audio off. So as the end user, you don't have to listen to it. You can disable it.
Very nice. And I will certainly throw out there, from someone that believes a lot in software education and educating folks. I have done training videos before, and I've used things like Snagit or Camtasia. But one thing that I noticed here was those flyouts that I like to add looked like they were added automatically, or maybe I should say automagically through automation. Is that true?
So the action notes and the the click here, click there, those bubbles. Mm-hmm. Is that what you were asking about? Yeah. So yes, they are. So ART uses object recognition technology, so it understands the field names and the link names of anything in a Windows or web-based application, and that means that it will say it knows that you've clicked, or you've right-clicked, or you've typed, or whatever the action is that you've taken, and it will tell you to take that action in this area of the screen, and it will label that area of the screen. So it will say, enter, type Anna in the first name box, type Jup in the last name box, because it will have recognized that, created those action notes automatically for you. So there's not a lot of heavy editing to do, which really is, a big bonus of this particular software.
Outstanding. Yeah, that would save an awful lot of time for sure. Another individual is asking, can they save a set of steps and import or export to another scenario?
If you've created it, so ART's all about reuse. Don't keep creating stuff, don't keep recording stuff. You don't need to do it. If you've got some of the content somewhere else, if you already recorded that as an ART process, then you just import that into your steps so that you don't have to go through that So if, for example, you wanted to show something like a branching scenario or something where, not everybody would go through a full process, everybody would go through the beginning part of the process, and then say the systems administrators or whoever would go through the second part of the process, you can just pull that first part in so you don't have to re-record it.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you for that. Another question is, an individual said they would love to see this for creating blogs and content on blog-like engines, and you can output as HTML. Is there an option to produce blog content for sites like WordPress or other similar things?
There isn't at the moment. It's something I would like to investigate. So yeah, maybe we can look into that.
Awesome. And certainly feel free to reach out to the attendees of this session if you wanted to do, say, beta testing of that, because I'm sure the individuals asking about that would be intrigued to give you feedback on it if that's a feature that comes out.
Okay, thank you.
Another question comes, so I'm going to interpret this question. It says, when will you be offering content for ALM Octane? And I think, and this individual, feel free to write back if I'm interpreting it wrong, is asking more, are there going to be videos for ALM Octane using this technology to have some really nice walkthroughs through features of Octane?
It's available. I'm pretty sure it's already available. I can double check that for anybody, but we create content packs that we sell with the developer kit. So you can either buy the developer kit and the content pack, or you just can take the developer kit by itself. It's up to you. It depends what you want to use it for. Obviously, pre-built content will save you hours and hours and hours of content creation time, even if it is as simple as I've showed you. And you can take that content and you can customize it. So if your implementation's been configured from the out of the box, you can change the screenshots within the developer kit so that what you publish out to your end users is what they see on the tools that they're actually using. So the answer to that is yes, I think there is content for Octane. I know there's definitely an Octane module within the ALM content pack, but I can double check for you on I know they're either working or have published a complete Octane course.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. If maybe if you happen to find that, we can follow up with the attendees of this webinar on that so they can learn more about it. I do know if you go to the ADM help pages, there are some videos on Octane and other tools that Micro Focus builds. I specifically know the ADM space ones, but there are some out there that maybe we can learn about more. Another individual is asking if there's any way for you to reveal the kind of costs of what art would cost for a organization, if you happen to know.
Yeah, I mean, I know.
Too sticky of a question, if you can tell us maybe how it's licensed at the very least.
So we currently have two licensing models. Okay, one is a named user license. This is one that scales down very well. So in those kind of teams where everybody collaborates, then every content creator, content viewer has a license, and you buy them in packs of 50, and they're not expensive. You can buy them with the content, and you need to buy support for the first year because it's a licensed product. So that kind of scales down up to the other model. We call it the enterprise model, where all content viewers are covered by the enterprise license, and you buy the number of authors that you need. So just the people who will be creating the content, they need a license to use those files and to use the developer kit, and then they can push it out to their entire organization. Obviously, that one is more expensive because you've got a whole organization covered with that. The smaller one, the 50 named users, is cheaper way to do it. I mean, it just depends on the situation. What we're able to do is offer a licensing model that works for bigger and smaller customers. Be very happy to take that up individually with the person who asked the question if they want to get some, because I don't even know which currency I should be talking in.
Nope, that's fine. And can we offer up that individuals can reach out to you after the webinar to find out more about the product and about purchasing, licensing, and other things?
Absolutely.
At least you can point them in the right direction. And you mentioned for the licensing, so back to the individual that asked the question about blogs, they wouldn't need to license the content that they're making for their blog viewers. They only need to license the ability to make it? Is that how I would read it?
Yeah, I mean, It depends. It's the blog going outside of their organization. There'd be a number of kind of questions that we sort of need to get to the bottom of. But say internally, once you've created videos and things like that, then, you can share that stuff across your organization. But it kind of gets a little trickier when we're talking about outside. It depends exactly what you wanted to share, and I can certainly guide somebody on that.
Superb. I think you already covered this one, but let's just touch upon it again so everybody can remember. What are the main publishing outputs for art?
Okay, so you have 4 types of simulation, 3 of which are interactive simulations. You have an MP4 video format. Then you have documentation, which is in PowerPoint, PDF, HTML, and Word. And then you have a bunch of other stuff like guided help, which is just the steps of the simulation that come up. So you can have that over the application that you're working on, and it will talk you through it, but without actually having a full screen. So that's great for people who are working off of one screen rather than 2. You also have a bunch of procedural tables. You can also output into test scripts as well. So there's a whole raft of things there. And the trick to it is just to enable them in the template that you've used. And that means that you'll be able to access all of those in your developer kit.
Outstanding. And other than desktop and web, are there other types of applications that art can be used on? I know you demonstrated with ALM that uses a web browser. I believe you'd mentioned desktop applications, but can you go into, like, if there's a list of the types of applications that we could expect to do training with using art?
So literally anything that is locally installed on your PC, or anything that is a web-based application. I have used it recording in VMs, and we have done it across someone who was running 12 VMs off of their machine, and we've recorded content across those 12 VMs. It's not as great content because it's not able to always recognize the field names and the links and stuff, but it's kind of good enough for what you need if you don't mind doing a bit more editing.
Okay, sounds good. We're going to be wrapping up in a couple minutes, so feel free to get some of those questions in if you have anything else. And I'm just going through the list here to make sure we didn't miss anybody. So here it sounds like a very wide open question, so feel free to take it in whatever direction you feel appropriate. Someone asking if you can create whole e-learning courses with art. It feels like the answer is yes, but maybe you can touch upon 1 or 2 things that it brings to the table that help make those courses a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, you can create whole modules. You can create whole courses made up of modules. You can create whole learning paths. So, if you're, for example, a software tester, you can create a learning path that takes you through, fundamentals of ALM. If you're using some functional testing, fundamentals of UFT, even into things like, how does DevOps work and things like that. So you can create all of these modules, and in the modules, you can embed videos, so MP4, you can embed Flash, you can pull in, so if you've already had content that you've created in PowerPoint, for example, you can pull that content in as images, you can put pictures and diagrams in it, you can make the content interactive by using hotspots and getting people to click here on the screen and do stuff like that, including bits of assessments, knowledge checks, that kind of thing, as well as obviously pulling in your simulations, the practice ones, and the demonstration. You can also attach to a module a whole bunch of, we call them managed documents, but basically that's anything else you've got about this tool or this process in any format you've got it, whether that's links to like your intranet or whatever, or actual physical documents attached. You can put all of that into the module. So what you're doing there is creating a knowledge base for, where do I go if I need to understand about something in ALM that I don't know? You go here, because here is all of your documents. Here is all of the learning activity. I think my voice over IP's just started working. All of the documents, everything, literally everything to do with that process or that tool. And that's a great place for a learner to start, whether they're new learners or whether they just want to go back. And because the modules are very easy to navigate, there's a menu and you can just click to where you want to go. That means that instead of having to start a module and do it from start to finish to find the short answer that you want, you just go to the page that you want, or you just launch that one simulation, or you just download that one process guide. And it's very much on this kind of idea of, if I need to know something, I need to find it in a few minutes. I don't want to be searching around. I don't want to be looking on YouTube for the answer. I don't want to be searching the web for the answer. I want somewhere I can go where I've got all of that content and it's arranged in a logical, easy to navigate way, and I can just pull exactly what I want and I'm done.
That sounds great. And this one's for me, but I heard you mentioning, knowledge checks and other things, questions and quizzes or something like that throughout the videos or document, just whatever your presentation model is. Is there a central collection mechanism for that, or are those just quick spot checks and without collecting results?
So you can do both. You can put in knowledge checks kind of midway through a course. And if to you as an organization, results and assessments aren't important, then you can miss them out entirely. It depends on where you host it is the answer to that question. If you put it in your LMS, then you can check who has taken it, who has passed, who has failed, whatever. And some of the LMSs have a whole bunch of really cool analytical functionality around how long did people spend on this page, and what seemed to be the question most people got wrong, that kind of thing. You can also put it on, like I said, a dedicated art server where some of those metrics will be tracked as well. So yes, there's two types of assessments, the kind of more fun pop quiz type of ones, and the ones which actually yield some kind of result that you can track depending on where you host it.
That sounds great. And I heard you mention about being able to embed videos. And I think as you're launching new methods, you're starting to adopt DevOps, you're going down a new path, you're adopting a new development methodology, and having a director or someone have a couple-minute video introducing why and really solidifying the notion that this is a good idea for the company could be really slick to add in front of some of your videos. So that's really cool. Certainly something that I and I'm sure many others would be eager to get their hands on and check out. So certainly expect to have an explosion of emails come soon with all kinds of interest from us.
Sure.
But we have gone through all the Q&A, and I have badgered you plenty, so thank you for that. Did you have any final thoughts before we start closing up from today?
No, I'd just like to say thanks very much for attending this. It was my pleasure to present this topic to you. Thank you.
Oh, certainly. It was our pleasure to have you today to join us and share the content, and certainly something we're all going to look forward to go back and review and think about as we plan our 2019. So this is a really great time of the year to have this presentation. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
If you don't mind shuttling us to the next slide just to talk about other upcoming webinars. So later today, actually, we have the Founder Spotlight Series with Vivit leader Matt Angier. And then later on in this month, we have a SIG Talk on DevOps and performance testing powered by voice, SIG Talk on IT operations for optimizing hybrid cloud environments with OpsBridge and other utilities. And then next month, another Founder Spotlight for Vivit Director and Leader Bob Cruz. So some really good content coming up, and continue joining us for all these really great Vivit webinars. And thank you very much. And Anna Marie, it's been a pleasure. So thanks for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your week.